Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report. I'm your host, Amy Zawi. Today we have joining us from the UK, Steven Jaffe, the chair of the Northern Ireland Friends of Israel. I thought it was important for you all to understand what is going on in the UK, and Steven has a wonderful and expert vantage point on that and can share a little bit with us about the atmosphere in Northern Ireland in particular, as well as the UK as a whole, and give us some resources so that we can follow this news as we continue to support Israel and the Jewish people worldwide. Steven, welcome to our program and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, for the opportunity to reach out to an audience who perhaps have never been to Northern Ireland or Ireland, although I do know that in the United States there are 40 million people who claim Irish descent, so no shortage of people there with an interest in Ireland, and in particular where I'm from, which is Northern Ireland.
Excellent. That's right. We have so many Americans with Irish ancestry and do feel a kinship and a connectedness to the land and the culture. Stephen, tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up doing the work that you do to support Israel, being a friend of Israel.
So I have quite an unusual background, Amy, in that I was born and I grew up a member of the Jewish community in Belfast, which is the capital city of Northern Ireland. And that was when I was growing up, already a very small community. It's even smaller today, but you would be talking about the hundreds. I think around about 250 members of the synagogue. When I was a child growing up in Belfast, and this was during the period of unrest, which we call the community and the Catholic of Northern Ireland. Should it be part of should it be part of the Irish Republic? So this was the environment that I grew up in was one of conflict between the Protestant community, which is largely unionist, meaning that they support the connection between Northern Ireland and the United Kingdom, and the Catholic community, which is largely nationalist, meaning that they wanted to incorporate Northern Ireland in the Irish Republic. And there was I, as a Jewish boy. Well, very sadly, there was violence going on around me. So that was quite unique. It was a small community, but also with a history of contribution with the wider community. So it was much too small, for example, to have a Jewish day school, which I know would be true of many American cities, that the Jewish communities are so much larger. So I went to a school with a strong Christian ethos. There were a lot of my friends right through my childhood were evangelical Christians. And that's something which I think has, characterized me throughout my life and my career. Those friendships between that I had with evangelical Christians, and it was about the year 2009. I'd left Northern Ireland when I was 18, largely because of the ongoing violence there at the time, and I went to England to study. And I was working as a lawyer in London, and one day the headlines in the national UK Jewish paper said, "The trade unions of Northern Ireland lead the way in boycotting Israel." This was an early indication to me that the hostility towards Israel, including in the place which I still regarded as home, where I'd grown up as a child in Northern Ireland, that it was growing apace, this hatred. I remember the leader of the trade union movement there was quoted as saying, "The future is with us, it's growing. We're going to isolate Israel." There was a little shop in the main shopping mall in Belfast, the city that I grew up in, that was being physically attacked at the time. So I had a choice to make. I tutted, and I could have turned over the page and thought, this is terrible, or you do something about it. And through the help of others living in Northern Ireland, although at the time, as I said, I was living in London, we decided to set up an organization called the Northern Ireland Friends of Israel, because I knew there was a lot of support for Israel in Northern Ireland, but it didn't have an organization or a focus. And I thought that was extremely important, given the fact that there were new challenges arising of hostility towards Israel, coming from the hard left, coming from various different origins, but becoming very threatening. And thankfully, the organization launched successfully, and from 2009 until today, we have maintained that organizational focus for support for Israel in Northern Ireland. And we have events that we can attract 500 people to. So if you've heard that the Jewish community when I was growing up was 250 people, and today it's much smaller, you can understand that the vast majority of people attending our events are not Jewish. They're coming from a wider community, many of them from a Christian perspective. And we're an organization that brings together friends of Israel, whether they're from the Jewish community, the Christian community, secular support for Israel. We're there as an umbrella group for people who wish to stand with Israel. And even though that I live in London, I've kept that role as being chair of Northern Ireland Friends of Israel for the last, well, it's over 15 years now. Particular issues in Ireland, particularly the Republic of Ireland, we're facing an increasingly hostile environment. It's very polarized. And what we're trying to do is build up friendship at a human level, at a community level, between people in Northern Ireland and the Israeli people. And we've had delegations that have gone to Israel. We a few years back, we hosted the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog. He wasn't president then, but he has a special connection with Belfast because his father was born in the city of Belfast. That was Chaim Herzog, who was also president of the state of Israel. So on the centenary of his father's birth, we've done some wonderful things. It continues to be very challenging. We have, thank God, wonderful support. So obviously that was a huge honor for what is a small voluntary organization, but it shows the historic links that exist between Northern Ireland and Israel. Isaac Herzog's grandfather was the rabbi to the Belfast Jewish community. So that's going back over a century. But these connections, of course, are still powerful and still a way of engaging people with their own local history. So that was a very significant high point for us. And we've taken delegations of elected representatives to Israel so that they can see themselves the facts on the ground there, including after the 7th of October atrocities and in the aftermath of that. So I think it's very important to supporters of Israel across the globe, in particular to North America, where there are strong connections between Ireland and America, because I think it's important that your listeners should know exactly what's going on in both parts of Ireland, which is, I'm afraid, often in the news in a very negative sense regarding the relationship between Ireland and Israel. So I'd love to have the opportunity to explore that a little bit closer for your audience.
If you can give a brief explanation, a lot of Americans are unclear exactly that sort of division on the island nation of Ireland. You mentioned you're from Northern Ireland, and that's part of the UK. If you want to just briefly explain that delineation, and then let us know what the atmosphere is currently that's going on.
So, yeah, I would say that many Americans would be surprised that the island of Ireland, which is roughly the size of Rhode Island, has two different jurisdictions on that island. So if you fly into Dublin, you're in the Irish Republic, which is an independent state, which is a member of the European Union. Cross the border, which is in the northeast of the island, you're in Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom. The head of state is the King in London. They send representatives to Parliament at Westminster. So you have two different states, two different heads of state, two different currencies, all in this small island, which has a population, I would say, roughly of about 8 million altogether. Now, there's two different, I would say, political environments so far as Israel is concerned. In the Republic of Ireland, there is, I would say, at a political level, a great deal of hostility towards Israel. And that sadly is true of many European countries and globally. But what I think, in my opinion, makes the Republic of Ireland stick out is that you don't have a major political party which takes a contrary view and is more supportive of Israel. In other words, all the main political parties there are hostile to a greater or lesser degree. And that's a very difficult situation for also a small Jewish community in the Republic of Ireland. It's bigger than in Belfast, but you're talking about a total Jewish population, I would say, of about 3,000 in the Republic of Ireland. They feel quite political environment is unusually hostile. There are very few major political figures who will speak out in support of Israel. In 2024, I think the Israeli embassy in Dublin was closed. And the reason for that is, as I've said, the Israelis felt that there was no point in having an embassy, and they would rather channel their resources to countries where they could build on friendship and support. So that's a very sad situation. It's by no means the whole story. There are individual brave people who will speak out and great friends of the Jewish community down there. But the prevailing environment is hostile. The chief rabbi in Ireland has spoken about a community that feels very isolated. The representative council of the Jewish community in the Republic of Ireland is about to publish a paper which will outline what they've said will be 100 instances of actual anti-Semitism in the Republic of Ireland. So that's not a great picture. In Northern Ireland, the environment is different. It's very polarized in that you have this split I've mentioned between those who wish to remain part of the United Kingdom. There are Protestant community, speaking in general terms, of course, because there's always exceptions, but the majority of the Protestant community would be unionist. The majority of the Catholic community is nationalist. This is a split over where they would like Northern Ireland to be constitutionally. And believe it or not, they're very polarized and split on the issue of Israel. And if you visit Belfast, the city that I grew up in, you will see Israeli and Palestinian flags flying in the streets. And they're not put up by Jews or by Arabs, but they're put up by Protestants and Catholics in their respective neighborhoods to show their allegiance for either side of this conflict going on thousands of miles away. So in Northern Ireland, you do have political parties that are supportive of Israel. They are the unionist parties, the ones who support the Northern Ireland's continuing place in the United Kingdom, whereas the nationalist parties would tend to be hostile to Israel. So you have a very divided situation in Northern Ireland, quite unlike the Republic, where, as I've said, there is not a major political party that takes the side of Israel.
Wow, that's amazing and unfortunate. So what in your estimation here in America, and it was interesting when you were explaining sort of the history between 2009 when you were sort of discovering this open hostility and the bad situation in international politics, so to speak, towards Israel, that really had been mirrored in the US as well. The BDS movement was taking root. Apartheid week on college campuses was taking root, and that general sense of from the news and from certain politicians at the time, just a slow wave of that increase of hostility towards Israel, which unfortunately in America anyway has also translated into an uptick of actual acts of violence or hostility against Jewish communities or individuals in the States. And that has been amplified since October 7th. The American Defamation League has really counted up unprecedented numbers of attacks, and the Jewish community in America, which is only about 2% of our population, is receiving well over 60% of the hate crimes or religiously motivated crimes. What's the situation in Northern Ireland or the UK as a whole as far as that safety of Jewish individuals and that sense of sort of that tangible anti-Semitism and hostility that might affect people's personal lives?
The UK is in no way exempt. A huge red line was crossed on Yom Kippur, on the Day of Atonement this year, when two Jews worshipping at a synagogue in Manchester were killed. And very shortly afterwards, there was a court case in the same city of Manchester where two people were convicted of planning a very serious terrorist attack against the Jewish community. They were seeking to obtain weapons to carry out that attack. So the Jewish community, of course, is apprehensive. The violence is, of course, a major concern, and that manifests itself in security outside our synagogues, where we volunteer to do security duty outside our schools, not giving away the venue, and this is true of Northern Ireland Friends of Israel, and all our, it goes beyond Friends of Israel, Jewish community events. Very often they will not give out the venue until perhaps a day before the event, and even then only to those who have been cleared as attending the event. So it manifests and impacts on the everyday life of the Jewish community. It goes way beyond that, because I think there is a sense of deep, I would say, uncertainty as to where our future actually lies in this country. And that goes to conversations that people have. Do we have a future here? Behind that, it's not just the violence or the fear of violence. It's also the narrative and the debate and the politics and demographic trends in which the Jewish community, even the 2% that you've mentioned, in America, in the UK, we're about half, 1% of the population. And concentrated Jews are extremely apprehensive with the risk of anti-Israel activity and rhetoric, whether that's rooted in the far left, whether it's rooted in elements within the Muslim community, whether it's rooted in a kind of a broader, more progressive, liberal-minded sect. And there is a great deal of apprehension as to what the future would hold here. And that is a fact. Is that manifested itself in Jews fleeing the country? No. But I think there is a mood of uncertainty, which I would say, I was probably more aware of it than many in the Jewish community, in the sense of all of this bubbling away. But now I think the kind of concerns that I would have had back in 2009 when I established Northern Ireland Friends of Israel is shared much, much more widely across the Jewish community, across many of my colleagues in the Jewish community who might have 2009 accused me of being alarmist. Sadly, I'm not happy about it. Come around to saying, well, yeah, you probably had a point then.
You mentioned something just a moment ago about when you were sort of examining the atmosphere and the political, and I saw a statistic just this morning released by CAM, the Combat Anti-Semitism Movement, and it mentioned, and this could have been for the Republic of Ireland, I'm not sure, but it probably spreads over the continent as a whole, but 60% of the Irish population are misinformed or unaware of the details of the Holocaust. And that to me is indicative of the education system, right? Just briefly, if you can share your insights on what's going on in your education systems, and I'm talking about younger children, not necessarily universities, that may be fomenting an ignorance, which could lead to a hostility both to the Jewish people and policymakers as they age and get into the workplace, bad policies with Israel.
Looking at the United Kingdom, there's been long-standing Holocaust education projects in schools. We have a scheme where every school in the country is entitled to send a couple of 17, 18-year-olds to visit Auschwitz, and they come back as ambassadors
Wow.
and to spread the word. So that's a very significant investment in Holocaust education. The statistics you mentioned does come out of a survey from the Republic of Ireland. I think there is an element of the Holocaust being thrown back in the faces of Jewish people. The perpetrators of Gaza were the victims of the Holocaust, and isn't that ironic and shocking? So, that itself is being thrown at us. I've been told, why didn't I learn the lessons of the Holocaust, as if it was a kind of a graduation course? So there is that kind of malicious element where the Holocaust will be thrown against Jewish people. Alongside that, there is a lot of ignorance. Younger people, if they are taught it, might regard it as a historic event of no significance to them. You're talking about an event in the mid-20th century to people who are born well into the 21st century, and to convince them of the relevance of the Holocaust is a different thing from the bare facts, which they may or may not know. And I think the survey suggested that even the most simple facts relating to the Holocaust are not essentially known. And sadly, I've heard it said, and this is by the a former leader of our Labour Party, which is the main left of centre party in the United Kingdom, where he takes a very hostile view regarding Israel, and he was actually thinking a good thing that this younger generation was much more liberated from a sense that the Holocaust should have any impact or bearing in terms of people's attitude to Israel. And I think this is quite a significant point, because our Holocaust education in the UK rarely makes the link between what happened in the Holocaust and the murder of 6 million Jews, and the fact that there was no state of Israel at that time that was able to take Jewish refugees in. So that aspect of the history has been shunted to one side, I think, because many Holocaust educators felt it was too political. They'd rather not go into the issues regarding Israel, get dragged into the politics of current events. So if that hugely important part of the piece is left out, then you can understand why I think so many young people do not see the relevance of the Holocaust when they so easily assume a position regarding Israel, which is demonizing, which is marginalizing. For you and I and Amy, we will automatically and immediately see that it's that demonization and marginalization which was essential to enable the Holocaust to take place. But for many of our young people who adopt the view that Israel is the most uniquely evil state on this earth, that it alone should be subjected to boycotts, that it alone should be isolated, and they're not able to make that connection with what happened in the past. Didn't start with the Holocaust, but it certainly reached a high point there. Then there's a huge issue in Holocaust education itself.
Wow, wow. Stephen, we really appreciate your insights. And there's so much that here in America that we're dealing with that is very similar. It's a similar trajectory. We are battling our K-12 education systems, our colleges, undergraduate and graduate, and that idea of the idea of good and evil as far as the issues between Israel and its neighbors is sort of redefined as political. Therefore, we can't talk about it. We can't talk about it at church, and we can't talk about it at school. And at the same time, they do talk about it because they come up with a narrative that sort of highlights incorrect news reports and lies. But we share those struggles, and the Christians in America really do want to support and pray for not just the Jewish community in the UK, but the Christian community and the the non-Jews and the non-Christians in the UK that are really coming to rally that support for the Jewish residents in the UK, as well as the what feeds the policymakers, so that Israel is considered a friend.
So, Amy, I think Americans can play a hugely important role so far as Ireland is concerned. Yeah. So, So I think what the people in America can do is really important so far as Ireland is concerned, because I think the Irish government is orientated towards America. The Irish economy is orientated towards America. And I think in particular with the Trump administration, there would be some concern in Irish political circles as to how their extreme anti-Israel hostility was playing out to American political audiences. So that is a bit of a possible break so far as this trend is concerned of Irish hostility towards Israel. And many congressmen with Irish backgrounds they're not speaking for the Irish diaspora, they're not speaking for the Irish people in its greatest sense when they are taking this very one-sided and uncritical view in promoting the Palestinian cause and hostility towards Israel. So anything that the audience can do in terms of alerting their representatives in America to their concern as to the drift in terms of Ireland's foreign policy, the fact that the Israelis have had to shut down the embassy there because they felt they were getting absolutely no traction, the fact that in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, they've been trying to pass a law that would make it illegal to purchase products from what they describe as the occupied territories, but would include, for instance, the Jewish quarter in the old city of Jerusalem. That this kind of momentum, which will carry on and on and on. There was a move to rename a park in the centre of Dublin, which is currently called Herzog Park, after the Herzog family that we've discussed. There was a move to try and change it so it wouldn't have the name of an Israeli Jewish connection with Ireland. You know, where is this going to stop? And I think Americans have a outsized role in convincing the Irish government that they must take action on this, that neither anti-Semitism or an extreme hostility towards Israel should just go unanswered.
That's an excellent point, Stephen. And yes, I encourage Americans of Irish descent or otherwise to continue to contact their elected representatives, whether it's the school board over curriculum issues or Congress folks who are making policies, congressmen and senators who are making policies, both with trade agreements and other agreements with the Republic of Ireland, just also the UK. I mean, they have their issues as well, and we have our own.
Absolutely.
And there's no reason why we cannot voice those opinions as constituents in a democracy. Stephen, tell us again the name of your Facebook page so we can all be following your Facebook page and sharing the information that you put on or your administration puts on it so that we can keep abreast of what's going on and your activities and just celebrate the wins and pray for the struggles.
Thank you so much, Amy. It would be brilliant, and I think a good way to keep in touch with what actually is happening in Northern Ireland and then more broadly in the Republic, and to find us, just search Northern Ireland Friends of Israel. You'll come to us. We've recently relaunched. We're putting lots of information out there. Thankfully, we've had an excellent response over the last week or so, and we're looking to grow. So please hook up with us on Facebook, Northern Ireland Friends of Israel, and you will be kept up to date with what is happening over there. And we really value that support. As a smaller organization, we want to reach out to Friends of Israel globally. We think we have an important part to play in the overall movement to support Israel. So we would very much welcome connections with supporters in America and indeed around the world.
Excellent. Steven Jaffe, chair of the Northern Ireland Friends of Israel. Find them on Facebook. I will share also a screenshot of that for you all to see if you're watching on YouTube. Again, Stephen, thank you for your time, and we continue to pray for the Jewish community in the UK and the Republic of Ireland as well, and we will do what we can, how we can.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, and Shavua Tov.
Thank you.
If you enjoy these conversations, please visit us at www.thejerusalemconnection.us. Find all our podcasts on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast program. Follow us on social media, subscribe, like, and share our content to reach the broadest audience.